For all things outdoors, listen to the father of two, the Jesus-loving TV show hosting hairy, true-blood American redneck, Ben Cole.
And listen to the outdoor filming, chef cooking, chocolate milk drinking, John Weissmuller. And we are
Rooted Podcast. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Rooted Podcast. This week, guys, we have a very, very special guest. He's an outdoor filming pioneer, an original turkey thug, an adventurous storyteller. He's the man, the myth, the legend, the truth, Mr. Ronnie Cuz Strickland. Ronnie, how we doing today, sir?
I'm good. That's quite the introduction. You need to raise your bar a little bit, though. I promise you. So, that was awful nice.
Oh, man. Well, in my eyes, I know you've been doing this for a while, and, you just deserve a lot of respect, my friend.
Well, it was all divine intervention. There wasn't no big marketing plan for me. I could still be the produce guy down at the Winn-Dixie.
Oh, yeah.
If it weren't for God pushing little things around, but
Yes,
I've
sir.
been very blessed, and I'm always humbled when younger people take note of that. That's pretty cool. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So let's just dive right into here. One of my first questions for you is, just like we mentioned, you've been doing this for a while. I want to know, can you take us back to those earlier days? What was it like kind of pioneering this outdoor filming world that we all live in now?
Well, it goes way back. I was working at a sporting goods store in Natchez, Mississippi called Rex Sporting Goods. When the first camcorder came into the Sears and Roebuck store, and a buddy of mine bought it. His name was Gary Porter, and he brought it by that sporting goods store is where everybody came in the morning and drank coffee, whatever.
Sure.
And I was just fascinated with that camera. I was like, we immediately got some safety pins and stuff and camoed it up because it was turkey season. And I was like, I'm going to try to film some turkey hunts with this because I went every morning before work. And it just, for some reason, that flew all over me. I would go film, and whether I got anything or not, I would come back and put that VHS tape in a player at the store. And, it may be just walking or something gobbling in a tree or whatever. But people would come by because back then there weren't anything. You didn't have internet and YouTube and all that stuff. So that's how we shared stuff. And man, if you got a turkey's head behind a bush, people were coming, man, did you see that footage that Cuz got? And it was just crazy. But I got real addicted to that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I filmed a couple of hunts, I would send the VHS tape to Will Primo's because I was buying calls from him, which he was making himself at the time, and they would be in their
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy, and just kind of did it for fun. And then one day he shows up at Rex Sporting Goods,
Oh.
and he's got this giant TV camera he bought from WLBT, I think, in Jackson. It was huge. And said he was trying to shoot a turkey video. He'd already done an audio cassette. He was the first guy. He had a little cassette you could listen to, which was a recorded turkey hunt. I listened to it 10,000 times. It was the coolest thing you ever heard. From early morning red birds to turkey gobbling way off to he shot it and you could hear the wings flapping in the leaves and stuff. And
Wow.
so anyway, I took that camera and figured out. It took a while to figure out how to turn it on and everything, and just kind of did a little testing with it. He was paying me $10 if I filmed all day and 6 cents a mile.
Wow.
And,
Times have changed, huh?
Yeah, times have changed. Anyway, I managed to get a little bit, so we did it the next year. I ended up going to work for him, and that's when I took it every day, and it was so heavy. I weighed everything. I went to what we call the ice house one time, and they had a scale. Anyway, I unloaded everything and set it on that scale, and it weighed 88 pounds.
Wow.
It was a big camera with a cord to a backpack, and the tripod had a lid. Anyway, filmed some hunts that spring, which turned out being the first truth video, which ended up being a cult movie. So I guess the timing was really good for, Primos,
Wow.
Malsioc and everybody, and everything just kind of took off from there. But that's kind of the short version of how I got into videography, because I certainly wasn't trained for it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, that's pretty wild. So I heard you mention like the camera weighing 80 pounds and just a heavy built camera. So what's it like seeing what you saw in the beginning and comparing that to the cameras of today?
It's almost hard to do. There's so many young people doing stuff, and the video's gotten so much better. And when I look back at that, I remember when we went to get I had all these big giant. The tapes were 3/4 inch tapes. They were this big and that
Oh
thick,
my
and
goodness.
they were 20 minutes, and the batteries were about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how cold it was.
Mm.
So I mean, there was a lot going on there. But if you go back and look at that first video, The Truth, I'm pretty proud of how that turned out. Now the colors aren't great, and it's not 4K. Matter of fact, when we went to edit, there was a place in Jackson, Mississippi called ImageWorks, and that's where I took all the video, and we were going to edit them together there. And the first one he put in was a tape from that Giles Island hunt where Will shot the turkey. It was one of the only hunts he was on, and you can see the wad hit the turkey's neck. And the edit guy's like, it's kind of blue looking. He said, did you get a white balance? And I'm like, what's a white balance? And he actually shut back then. You had to manually do all that. I had a white card this big that had mossy oak tape on the back of it, and I'd set it out in front of me and get the camera down, and had a big toggle switch, and it would blink, and it would set the color scheme for wherever you were at. But
Wow.
and now, I mean, I filmed a lot this spring, and some of it was on my iPhone, and some of it was on a little bitty camcorder with a tripod that I can fit in a fanny pack, that's made out of aircraft aluminum, and it's like good. That's a good thing. I don't have an issue with technology unless it's used in the wrong way. You hear that
Sure.
about social media, but to me, the only regret I got is I wish I would have saved that original setup, just
Yeah.
so I can show it to people, because I don't know. I don't know how many people would be doing it if all that stuff was still that heavy, because it's so easy to get good video now. And that's a good thing.
So what'd you do with the original setup?
We sold. I'm assuming back then you could kind of sell, and trade, and do all that. We kept we used to buy cameras here at Mossy Oak from a place called B&H, and if you were going to try to step up and go from a 3/4 inch to beta, you could trade the old stuff in, and now it's worthless. But back then we kind of it's like if you wanted a new truck, pretty much had to trade your old one in or sell it, and it all just kind of disappeared. I did save
Wow.
one camera
Oh.
that had a TNN sticker on it, and we put it in the Mississippi Outdoors Hall of Fame building over in Leland, Mississippi. And I have a
Wow.
booth in there, and I set that big giant camera in there. But I wished I'd have saved all that other stuff, the arms and the backpack, but it just disappeared. Trying to make enough money to keep going, and it just all got traded in.
Wow. Well, man, that's life, Got to do what you got to do.
Oh yeah,
That's
you do.
right.
We understand that all too well.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it's hard to get started. Lauren and I, who produces my podcast, she's my youngest daughter. She also edited a lot of TV, which was what she did. And she was asking me about you guys' podcast and all that, and I was showing her some of the stuff on Spotify and all that. And she said, "Man, it's so hard to get started now and get your foot in the door." And some people just don't have that stick to itness. But if you do, there's a lot to be said for having a good work ethic and
Yes,
a
sir.
sense of humor. It'll take you a long way. Just got to have a little faith.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
faith goes a long way around here.
That's what I was going to say is we live and breathe and try our best to walk as close to God as we can.
Well, we're all struggling Christians and make mistakes
Oh,
every
yeah.
single day. But somebody that doesn't believe, I don't know how they have I don't know what they use for a compass, but it's, and I'm no pastor or nothing, but it's worked well for me. I used to tell the young videographers, I never would call anybody a cameraman because to me it felt disrespectful because they worked so hard
Mm-hmm.
packing that heavy stuff. And I used to tell them just, you know, we didn't have a host. At one point we had 5 television shows, and this is when TV was big time. We were producing 5 at one time.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
Remington Country, one for the NRA. We had a show on the Golf Channel, Hunting Country, all this stuff. And so we were just going to film hunts and events and stuff, and didn't have a host to run things because so the videographer, the field producer, was always in charge. And I tell them, hey, just number one, people will help you more if they like you. So be respectful. Just act like your mom is standing behind you, and everything will work out. And I think that's still true today.
Oh,
Couldn't agree
absolutely.
more.
So I heard you say TNN, and can you kind of explain real quick what that was to some people
Yeah,
who may not know?
yeah. Back in the day, cable TV, and well, the first hunting show that ever aired was on network. I'm old enough to where when I first started watching TV, we had 3 channels and they were black and white, and things progressed. But ABC had a show called American Sportsman, and if I'm not mistaken, it came on Saturdays at noon, and it was all shot on film with narration because they usually didn't have audio from the field. But watching that stuff, it was crazy. And Kurt Gowdy was the host, I think. And they would do mostly fishing and waterfowl. Every once in a while, you'd see something on there. But with the birth of cable TV, there was other networks that came up, and one of the first ones was TNN, which was the Nashville network, which ended up getting really big. And all the TNN aired was rodeo, NASCAR, country music videos, and stuff like that, and hunting and
Oh,
fishing shows.
okay.
And it was a gigantic audience. And the first ones on there were a couple of fishing shows. And so we launched on there about the same time as I don't know, may have been a year or two before Buckmaster. So we had a hunting show to a national audience, which was a really big deal. And we used to get Nielsen ratings, and I don't know how accurate they were, but that's all you had back then. The way they would put boxes on top of different TV in different regions of the world. But anyway, we would get Nielsen ratings on Tuesday mornings via fax, and that taught me a lot because you could see what the viewership was like. And the highest rated or the highest watched television show we ever aired on TNN was a little 9-year-old boy. His name was Brett DiBiase. His dad was Ted DiBiase in the WWF, the Million
Oh
Dollar.
yeah. Wow.
But Brett missed a little deer about that big over at Bent Creek, but he got buck fever so bad it was phenomenal. He couldn't breathe. His scope got fogged up from breathing. And I was filming him and the deer. Anyway, we aired that show and the ratings were just insane. And I was talking to Toxie about it, the founder here who owns Mossy Oak, and he said, "Man, it could have been luck." So the next year, I reinserted that show as one of the original 26 or whatever it was. Same thing. I mean, it just went nuts. And that taught me a valuable lesson is that content matters. And we did shows for Remington with African safaris and all that stuff. But I learned when you could get immediate feedback that if you got too far away from what people could relate to, your ratings went down. And so many people now are just interested in giant deer, 180-inch deer, or 200-inch deer, whatever it is. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that in that run on hunting the country, however long it was, 20 years or more, we never scored a deer on there, because I was always thinking about what old Johnny down at the gravel pit or Miss Mary checking groceries at the Kroger. They love hunting as much as everybody else. They probably ain't gonna ever see a 180-inch deer or a 150-inch deer, and that's okay. So we stuck on storytelling, and I think that's one of the reasons the brand did so good. We weren't really promoting this guy's the greatest hunter in the world or this person or whatever. It's like, man, come get in God's creation. Like Taxi says, you can only live your best life outdoors.
That's the
Oh
truth.
no, that is absolutely the truth. And you know, one thing you mentioned about the young man getting buck fever, John can attest to this. But I will be cool, calm, and collect until the shot happens, and then I absolutely every time I pull a muscle in my back or something because I'm so excited and just absolutely get beside myself about it. And it's not because I've killed something, it's because, you know, me and him have spent so much time in the woods and it's all coming together. And that's just the icing on top of the cake from being able to see the results of your labor for me anyway. And I mean, that's what our family eats year round is deer, turkey, all that stuff. So we excuse me, we just absolutely love it for that aspect alone is the meat. You know, we are the original organic folks. You know, people talk about being organic and all this. Well, whitetail and all games that God created, that is purely organic, 100%. So you know, that kind of leads me into what I was going to ask, you know, talking about, you know, getting excited and what you were talking about, you know, the content and all that. So in 2010, you won the NWTF Communicator of the Year. What was that like?
Totally unexpected. I've never thought of myself as anything other than a videographer. I have a title here at Mossy Oak, but I've always enjoyed telling stories. And, uh, people will tell you all the time, man, you got a big audience, you have a big following. And I don't ever think about that. I really don't. I use a lot of social media, and I'll tell you about that later. But I was at the NWTF working like we always do. You go to the NWTF, and like I said, the truth video, that first one's a cult movie. Everybody's seen it, so everybody recognizes you. So at the NWTF, you're me and Toxie and Will, whoever, are really busy. People want you to sign their hat, do this, and that's important. If it's a big deal to them, it's certainly a big deal to me. But I don't always make it to the events that night because I'm so wore out, or we're still at the booth or whatever. And they had to come get me and said, "You got to come to the ballroom." I said, "For what?" "Well, just come on." And man, I didn't have a coat and tie on or anything. I had like a denim shirt and a pair of blue jeans and all that. And I felt kind of bad having to get up on stage with that, because that was a big deal. Beautiful statue they gave me. It's sitting right over there. And I was a little embarrassed. But anyway, when the guy brought me up there, he started naming off some of the stats about how many people we've reached and all that. And again, it was very, very humbling. But, turkeys are a big deal to me and always have been. So I'm very proud of that award. Year before last, maybe 3 years ago, they changed the name of that to the Tom Kelly Communicator of the Year Award, who was my absolute inspiration as far as telling stories. And man, so look, I'm on a mission now. I want to win it for a second time, and I want that trophy that says Tom Kelly on it, just because I'm probably his biggest fan. But
Oh wow.
communicating's different now. And it used to be all TV and magazines and stuff, and now you got to be a guru on one of these, or you ain't reaching.
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, that's just the way life is now. I mean, so I want to go back to the turkey show for a little bit because that personally, that's I mean, other than actual turkey season, that's my favorite time of the year. I've been going to that thing for like probably 10 years in a row now. I absolutely love it, and I always notice, and see you every year, and we may say hi to each other and kind of shake your hand real quick, but I always see you just talking to anybody and everybody. Why? And I know you just kind of dove into that. What makes that so important to you to just make sure you say hi to anybody and everybody and all your fans?
Yeah, I don't know, but if it's like I say, if it's a big deal to them, it's a big deal to me, and it's so humbling, and it's almost embarrassing. But it's like uh, you can see they're wide eyed when they step up there, and so I'm one of those guys. I saw one time a good friend of mine's Charlie O'Brien. He was the catcher for the Atlanta Braves.
Mm.
He was catching when they won the World Series.
Oh
And
wow.
he's a good guy. I mean, he caught 13
Hmm.
Cy Young pitchers, 15 years in the major leagues. And I got to be friends with him through hunting. And I was at a game one time in Atlanta, and that was the year they won the World Series. They were making a run. And after the game, he said he was going to take me to his house and all that stuff. Well, they get into what they call the tunnel. You go in the tunnel where they park, and that's where all the fans are to see him and wave and take pictures. And I watched him sit there and sign autographs till like 1 a.m, till the absolute last person was
Mm.
done. I was like, that's crazy. I mean, the game's been over for 2.5 hours, but it's like it was a big deal. A lot of little kids, a lot of grown-ups and stuff like that. And you just it doesn't really cost anymore to be nice to somebody, and until you see they don't deserve to be, have your time or whatever it is. But it's just it's very humbling. I'll tell you a quick story. We started a podcast a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago. It's called A Fistful of Dirt. But last year at the NWTF, there was I go to different booths now. I was over at the Old Tom booth, and I was over at that booth, and I was going to be at the Mossy Oak booth when I wasn't there. And there was a line there. It was pretty long, and I was out there signing hats, and I was looking. I could see this little boy down there had his mom with him. She finally got out of the line and was standing over there, and he worked his way up. He was little, maybe 8 or 9, and he come up to me, and I shook his hand. He said, "Mr. Cuz," he said, "I love your podcast." And I went, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, I love it. I said, "What do you like about it?" He said, "I like them hunting stories. I don't have any." And
Oh
I
man.
thought I was going to start crying. So anyway, I visited with him a little bit, and single mom working 2 jobs. And he saw turkey hunting on YouTube and just fell in love with it. And she brought him to the show. We ended up lining him up a turkey hunt because he didn't live anywhere near me. But it's like, that's a big deal, and it's like, if being well known, even if it's in a small bullseye audience, that comes with some responsibility in my eyes. That's why I'm careful about what I post on social media, and uh, try to be positive and as much as I can, because I feel like you owe that to everybody else. Just because somebody's not famous don't mean they're a better hunter than you are, and they're everywhere out there.
Yeah.
So it's still, to this day, I'm 70 years old almost, and it's still humbling to me, and that's just the way I look at it. So
Wow.
Wow.
No, that's absolutely incredible. That's a great story. Um, and cuz listen now, we had a booth for the first time last year, and we'll have one this year. So you just stop by whenever you want to.
I'll be there. I'll make
Absolutely.
that a bucket list. We'll come over and take some pictures and stuff. If you're
Heck
doing
yeah.
a podcast
Yeah.
there, I'll plug you. I'm gonna plug you when we get through here. As soon as I see when the podcast is ready, I'm gonna throw it up on my social media and
Oh
send some
heck yeah.
people over
Well, that's just incredible. We sure do appreciate it.
We
there.
absolutely do appreciate that.
Well,
Absolutely do.
that's the positive part of social media. I'll tell you, not many people my age do it at the level I do it, and I'm not, I'm not Joe Rogan or nothing, but this is how old I am. My oldest grandchild's a girl, and she's a senior now at Mississippi State University, Avery.
Good for her.
And that's how old I am. But when she was like 10 or I don't know, she was little, young, 12 maybe, we were catfishing and catching catfish. And she was like scrolling on that phone. I said, Avery, you spend too much time on that phone. She said, Pop, if you're not on Instagram, you're just not relevant. Now, she wasn't cutting me up. She was just letting me know that's where her mind was.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that for a long time. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? I'm going to be relevant to my grandkids. There's 3 little boys coming up behind her. So I kind of dove in on my own and to Instagram and Facebook. And I got a Twitter or an X thing. I've deleted that 2 or 3 times because I got mad. Had a bunch of we ain't gonna go in but I even have a TikTok, and it's like, but I just put videos of my, stuff, old stuff and stuff on there, and there's people out there for that, and I get to reach them for basically free. I seen Taxi write checks for enormous amounts of money back in the cable days. When we left TNN, they sold. We went to ESPN, buying that airtime, and it was so expensive. We could reach a couple of 100,000 people. He's like, mission accomplished. And I can do that, on my couch at night for free. It's mind blowing. If you didn't grow up in that age, it's mind boggling to see how many people you can reach kind of for free. So I'm still enamored with that thought. But I use it a lot, but I make sure it's all positive. And I get so many messages and stuff. I can't answer them all. I try to get to them when I can. But people, if they've seen you, whether it's on video or TV or whatever it is, they feel like they know you. I know that feeling. I had people I'd love to meet. And so social media is good for that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, is that why you wanted to start the podcast? Just so you could kind of, quote unquote, stay relevant and reach people? Or, I mean, what made you want to start Fistful of Dirt?
That's all Lauren, my youngest daughter. She came in here 4 or 5 years ago, and she said, Pop, you need a podcast. I'm like, okay, what's a podcast? I absolutely had no idea.
Wow.
Well, she was a podcast person. She listens to all kinds of crazy stuff, that's interesting to her, whether it's true crime or Bigfoot or UFO anyway. And so she said, go do some research. And I went and listened to a bunch of podcasts. There wasn't many hardcore hunting podcasts back then, and I went and listened to a bunch of them, and I said, I don't like any of those. And so she came up with a little format. We did a test, and I interviewed a guy named Will Jimeno. Will Jimeno was the last guy they drug out of the rubble at 9/11. He was a Port Authority police officer.
Wow.
And his story's amazing.
And
anyway, I interviewed him, and we just kind of made a test podcast. Well, about a year later, and we still didn't launch anything, the guys, Chris Hawley, who's the president of Mossy Oak Properties, came in and said, we need a podcast for Mossy Oak Properties, and you're the guy. None of them wanted to be the talker. And so Lauren whipped out that thing, the test we did a year earlier, and they's like, yeah, that's exactly what we need right there. So we recorded maybe 5 before we uploaded, and it's the rest is history. It went nuts, and we didn't have any marketing or anything behind it. And I got somebody sent a comment one day about, it's so family friendly. Not many people out there are doing this. And so I always talk about, hey, it's G-rated, no big words and no bad words. And I think that kind of hit a niche. And I learned pretty quick you didn't need celebrities or famous people, because everybody's got a story and people love to relate people who are relatable. Like I did one yesterday with a guy who works at the Monroe County Co-op over here. And, but he's always, and we talked about everything from tomato plants to summer food plots to what's selling good this time. But he was a wealth of knowledge, and I guarantee you people's going to listen to it. And good G-rated entertainment. And like I say, everybody's got a story, and not everybody's willing to dig deep and find it. And people, as a whole, are very interesting. You just got to dig it out of them a little bit sometimes. But yeah, the podcast was all Lauren. I didn't even know what that term meant, and I've learned a lot about it since then. I can tell you, it's a lot of work. My hat's off to you guys. I can tell you that.
Oh man.
Well, I'll tell you this about our podcast. This is all John's doings because I actually had a podcast before, and long story short, it just didn't pan out the way that we thought it would. And, that's fine. It happens. But after that, John was like, "Hey man, you need to do a podcast." And I said, "Nope, not doing another one." And he's just kept on. He said, "Come on, man, you got to do it." I said, "No, John, I'm not doing a podcast." Because John's been with me since day one of Rooted Television. So it's a crazy story how we met. So my barber, obviously I don't go to the barber much, but he trims up my beard a little bit every now and then. But nonetheless, I was there getting a straight razor on my beard, and I said, "Hey, man, if you ever run into anybody that wants to run a camera, please let me know because I would love to get this started, and I'm, don't know where to start other than finding somebody to help me film." And I guess it was about a week later, old John found himself in that chair, and they got to talking. Sean Templeton is our buddy. He owns Woods Viking Barbershop. Salt of the earth human. Wonderful guy. Heart for God. Awesome dude. Anyway, he calls me up, says, "Hey, man, I got this young man's number," because John was at college at Middle Tennessee University there. And so I called him up. And I said, "Hey, man, look, this is what I'm doing. I don't know if I can pay you or not, but you're welcome. I mean, this is just where we're at." And that's where it all began. And we've been rocking and rolling for going on 3 solid years now. And, he just kept on pestering me about this doggone podcast while we were on the road one day. We were driving, and I said, "All right, fine. We'll do the podcast." I said, "But here's the deal. You have to own 50% of it. You have to be right there with me. I don't have, the mindset to do all of it by myself." So I said, you need to be there with me the whole time. This is your baby, and I'll do it with you. I'll be right there beside you. And we have since then birthed Rooted Podcast. So that's where all that came from, was John being very persistent and saying, "Hey, man, we need to do this. We need to do this." And I'm glad he did.
Well, that's the way people get their information now. I can't tell you, the NWTF show is a prime example. I can't tell you how many times either me or Lauren or my wife or somebody standing with me, these older guys have come up and said, "Man, I'm hearing all about your podcast. How do you see it?" I said, "Well, you don't really see mine. You listen to it. Hand me your phone." And they all got iPhones. They don't know anything about the icons and stuff. So we'll punch it and I'll explain it to them. And it's like, and that I get some of the best comments and feedback from people who didn't even know how to listen to a podcast. And now that's how, I mean, that's all I do is listen to podcasts and scroll around YouTube and stuff like that. Of course, we're pretty much empty nesters now. So I have an hour or two at night, and that's where I get all my information, podcasts, if they're good, and YouTube and stuff like that. So, hey, it isn't rocket science. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And some people just will stick it out, and something will happen, and you're going to hit that right niche, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm glad we did this. So I'm pulling for you. I did a podcast a couple of months. I tell this story all the time now. I did a podcast. I don't remember what it was, but the subject or the public land came up, which ain't a big deal to me. I grew up hunting the Hohenschilder National Forest, Sandy Creek Wildlife Refuge, only place I ever hunted until I was 27 years old. And I just kind of passed over the subject saying, well, ain't no big deal, public or private. And this guy sent me a 2-page email, lit me up about, oh, you just get to hunt on private ground. Y'all go to all these fancy places. He was lighting me up pretty good. And in the end, he said, and you know what? You're old now. You've had your run. You need to let this next generation take over. And I was like, wow. But it had his name on it. It was old school because it was an email. It wasn't a comment. And so I waited about a week and I wrote him back. And I explained to him how I grew up and where and what I had done. And I said, as far as the younger generation, I said, I've had nobody promotes them harder than me. Dave Owens, he's been on my podcast 3 times. The Cat Man, the hunting public. I said, nobody promotes that next generation as hard as I do. And he got that email and he sent me back. He said, wow, I didn't know. I think I was having a bad week. And now he sends me an email once a week. We're like big buddies. But it's like I embrace that because I have these grandkids to watch. And it's not like it was when I grew up. I mean, everything was Mayberry when I grew up. You're born in 1954. You grew up in the early 60s. It was a different world. Well, it ain't like that anymore. So you got to figure out how to reach them. What can you do to make their surroundings better? They love old school stories. And again, that comes from with some responsibility. So as far as I'm concerned, you're going down the right track. And
man,
you put a little guidance from God in there, and people are going to watch you. I tell them about raising kids all the time. You can have all the defining moments you want, but they're going to learn. Then kids are going to learn how to act by watching you and how you roll. So we need more people like you guys out there. It's like, hey, this is doing the right thing for the right reasons. They're eating the deer meat. Sometimes that message can get lost in today's social media world. So hey, I'm proud to be on here, and I'm proud for you guys. I hope it does great. I'll do a little bit what I can to promote it for you anyway.
Well,
man, I sure do appreciate that. It's just a little reassuring to me that someone like you is seeing what we're doing and kind of giving the thumbs up to it. So it really does mean a lot.
It does.
Bar, but I'm still a cameraman. I'll call myself that. But what you guys are doing is awesome, and I get a lot of requests. As your social media gets big, you get inundated with, "Hey, I'm so and so. We have this product, and they want you to make posts for that." None of my stuff's monetized. I have a YouTube channel. I don't do a lot on it, a whole bunch. And I got a pretty big Facebook and all that kind of stuff, but I don't do that. None of my stuff's monetized because I don't want to be promoting products that, other than Mossy Oak. I've worked for them basically my whole life because there's so much out there. You see people who are these big time influencers and they'll change. They'll have 6 different bow brands in 7 seasons. And it's like, golly, 5 years ago, you were telling me the whatever X1 was the best, and now it's not. And I never wanted people to think of me like that. So I kind of stick to cool stuff, family pictures, caudal brim, whatever it is, and let everybody else try to make a living doing that.
No, I mean that makes sense. Just keep it simple and just keep it the way that it needs to be.
Yeah. Well, it's an easy trap to fall in, and it's just something I'd rather not do. I don't want to be beholden to somebody and I talk about stuff all the time, like Tetra, the hearing aids. I bought mine at the NWTF show.
Oh wow, okay.
Oh man, those things they kept me in the turkey hunting game. You'll get old one day. I hope you don't have hearing issues. They absolutely kept me in the game, and I talk about them all the time and make posts for them. And the guy, bless his heart, he's a great Christian man, Dr. Bill Dickinson. He's always trying to give me something. Or when I said, look, I don't want that. When I tell people about them, I say, I wrote a check for mine, and they ain't cheap, and I wouldn't take a gold monkey for them to this day.
Wow.
And I think people are pretty smart. They can pick up on when you're placing the ad and when you're speaking from the heart. And I always give people credit for having that kind of sense.
Oh, absolutely. So we're talking about, the TNN days and your podcast. I don't know how many people know or don't know, but you're also an author. What kind of differences have you seen in, writing a book, doing a podcast, doing a TV show? I mean, is it all just kind of the same idea? You're just throwing out media and trying to get attention, or I mean, have you seen differences in between those avenues?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I wrote 3 books, and they're not John Grisham novels. They got a lot of humor in them. There's some how-to in there if you read between the lines. And all turkey hunting, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Kind of did that by accident, but I had to. Somebody asked me to write a story or something, and I wrote it on my lunch break one day, and I just kind of kept going, and all of a sudden I got enough stories written down for 3 books, and it was just kind of a fun project. Writing a book and getting it put together is pretty easy. Selling it, that's a whole nother deal.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and at one point I felt like, look, if you ain't careful, you're gonna end up with, 60 cases of books in your garage. So I actually have a 4th one about halfway done, but I'll give you a good example. Because you're only going to reach so many people. We've been going to a place called Bent Creek Lodge since the first day we started filming TV at Mossio. Good boy, good guys. They've been lifelong friends now. They're right there in the Black Belt of Alabama. So deer hunting, turkey hunting, nice lodge. I mean, you don't go there to kill a giant deer, but they are the best at killing deer for people who don't have much time. They've been there forever. So they were in there the first year we had Moss here. Anyway, we made a lot of TV down there, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote about them in the books. I wrote a chapter called Murderer's Row about some of the guides that I met down there who were the best turkey hunters ever. We did a lot of stuff with them, put them on DVDs and all that. Well, I went down there when we were first getting started, and I did a podcast with the owners, John Lanier and Leo Allen. Took all the gear down there and waited till everybody was gone home. And they did a great podcast, but I wanted them talking about they are the best at predicting weather, growing green field, all that. And about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks after that podcast aired, Leo called me and said, Cuz, you got to take that podcast down. I said, what happened? What did we do? He said, we can't keep answering the phone. He said, nothing's come close. Even with all that TV and being in the books and all that stuff, nothing's come close to getting their phone lit up like being on that podcast, which is, like I say, it's a different world.
Yeah.
And having them come on talking about how they run things was, and having an hour or whatever it is to do it, man, that's so much better than having a phone number at the end of a TV show or a plug in a book or something. So I get it. That digital media is pretty powerful. So, and I guess I got a good, idea about all that because I've kind of done it all from the get-go, including books, DVDs, and all that. The podcast, powerful tool, especially when you hit your niche. So,
yes, sir.
Speaking on turkey hunting, if you ever find yourself in the great state of Tennessee, we actually have a lodge here, and we do turkey, deer, and
really?
we're adding pheasant and quail this fall. So if you ever find yourself up this way, we'd love to have you. We have some phenomenal turkey hunting here. It's called Sinking Creek Ranch.
What's the name of it?
Sinking Creek
Oh,
Ranch.
what now?
Sinking
You
Creek
got
Ranch. Yes, sir.
You got Instagram and all that?
Yes, sir. We do, and we're
What part
so
of
the past 2
Tennessee?
years, it's in Middle Tennessee. So we're in Perry County, just southwest of
Gotcha.
Nashville by about an hour and a half. And so the past couple of
Gotcha.
years,
It's so
we've had
cool.
some stellar success due to trapping, doing the conservation work, and everything that we've done for the turkeys. And last year, opening day, we killed a triple, and then this year we killed 4 in 2 mornings combined. So it was another triple, and one of them, the graveyard field. Man, you got to see it. It is a producer. Last year we killed a double out of it. This year we killed 1 bird opening day, and then 2 we doubled the next morning on the field that touches the graveyard field, and then about a week later we killed another one on the right in the gap between the big soybean field and the graveyard field. I took a active duty soldier out, and he actually got to kill his very first turkey. So it's been a phenomenal thing to see this change and grow over the years. But it just kind of leads me to what I was going to ask anyway. Aside from turkey hunting, if you had to pick any other animal to film or to hunt, what would it be?
Oh, it's always whitetail. We did everything on television. We filmed a couple of shows in Africa, and we used to do all kind of stuff. But it's I probably bow hunt harder than I turkey hunt. People relate me to turkey hunting. I get it. I love bow hunting as much as anybody. And I'm still able to do it. Thank you, Lord, for that. I'm still able to do it.
Yes, sir.
But there's if and I say this and people get offended, but the deer and turkeys down here are the most evil, wary, crazy creatures on the planet. And I didn't kill a buck last year with my bow. I killed a couple of does. I killed a big-eyed, 140-pound doe on
Wow.
December the 28th, which
Oh,
was,
wow.
and grandsons, everybody been hunting my little farm forever. And I have a couple of spots I got really good cover. It's like a triple budded tree and all that. You got to do it on a certain, and I run a hair through that big old doe and watch it took off and did an end over flip. And you would have thought I ain't never been deer hunting in my life. It's just the coolest thing ever. And so whitetails, I'll tell you this, out of however many years we did TV professionally, the hardest thing, and we've been everywhere, Canada, Alaska, and all that. The hardest thing for me to film was a whitetail buck in the southeast with a bow. The I don't know what the hard factor would be. If it goes 1 to 10, that would be a 15. And so I still love that challenge. And I'm like you guys, I love to eat that venison. And we got some really good recipes. We do our own ground meat and stuff like that. So yeah,
Oh, man.
turkeys are probably number one. That's a sickness, like Will Primo said. That's a cult. Everybody
Absolutely.
knows everybody. Deer hunting's a different thing. Deer hunting kind of got a little bit jaded with me with all the scoring and stuff like that. But I never got wrapped up into that. And God saw to that because I killed a giant deer back in 1981 when there weren't giant deer being killed, say. And it ended up being kind of a crummy experience for me. So never got caught up into how big that buck's got to be. Because back then, when I was, 14, 10, 12, whatever, people would they would just ask you, did you get your deer? Yeah, I got one.
Right.
It never came up. And it's sometimes people get too caught up in that other stuff, and that's okay. I'm a gamekeeper. I do whatever I can on my farm to, my goals are a little different. Mine is not to grow the biggest deer in the county. Mine's to have the most deer I can actually have on my property. I want maximum carrying capacity. food, all that kind of stuff, so them kids can see deer because they got
Right.
a lot. They got a lot working on them, with all this stuff. So like, I want them to see deer. So that's my goal: maximum carrying capacity.
Oh, that's a great goal to have,
Yeah, it is. It is. And, one thing that people don't even realize is a lot of bucks are not even genetically inclined to be 160-inch deer or whatever. I've killed several bucks that are 6.5 years old that will barely touch 100 inches, but they're old,
Yeah,
mature deer. The point being is that if you kill a deer that is 6 years old and older, you've done it. It don't matter how big his horns are on his head. You have won the game when you shoot a buck that is at that maturity.
sure, and I get it. And sadly, people, they just go by what all they see and scroll on Instagram, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is. You ain't gonna see many hero shots of me on Instagram. I don't kill a lot of giant deer, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It is.
if you want to recruit people into what we do, if you want to keep it going, you kind of got to get off of that, because the pool we need to pull from are people who are worried about where their food comes from. They don't have an issue with hunting. They get it. That's where protein. If you're eating protein, something died. They get that.
Mm-hmm.
And if it ever comes to a referendum at the voting booth, we want those people. That was a big goal for me at Hunting the Country. It's like, whatever, you had 20 million people who hunted, 20 million who are adamantly opposed, and you got 200 million people that don't have an opinion. Well, those 200 million, that's the ones I didn't want to offend those people in any way, because they're kind of open to whatever. And the the trophy hunting thing kind of offends some people. It doesn't bother me, because I know my trophy's going in the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean I ain't trying to kill a big one if I see one. Heck yeah, I'll get as wrapped up in that as anybody. I love it, but that should never be the only reason we hunt. Again, I'm old, so that's just an old guy's opinion.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. And
Mm-hmm.
man, you're talking about going to all these different places and doing all these things. What has been, kind of your favorite hunting camp as far as the people you have been with and where it's been? I mean, can you share a couple stories from a great hunting camp?
Yeah, I get that a lot. I did the last 2 years at the NWTF. Year before last, they did a thing called a campfire with Cuz or something like that, and it was 2 hours long. And that's a lot. That's a long time to stand up in front of people, and
Mm-hmm.
but people love to be entertained. And I get asked all the time my favorite hunt, and I always tell them, look, I got to take my family out of that circle, because there's nothing like hunting with like introducing my wife to it. She had never been, and both of my daughters and my grandkids. You take that aside, and I tell the same story every time. And sometimes I can't get through it without getting choked up. So I'm gonna just tell you ahead of time. But it was a turkey hunt with that young kid called, and his name was Ryan Welch, and we got a letter just as Catch a Dream was being formed. Catch a Dream takes kids with seriously ill, life threatening illnesses, and they were kind of just getting started. Matter of fact, me and Bruce Brady Jr., the Catch a Dream Foundation was founded in the honor of Bruce Brady. He was a big time outdoor rider, and we took the first kid, and he was about 12 years old. It was a deer hunt, but 2 or 3 years into that, people would write to Catch a Dream for a request, and this came from a guy named Roger Welch, and his son. He had two little boys. Ryan, I think, he was either 8 or 9, had a brain tumor. And his request was to go turkey hunting with either me or Will Primos. And I thought it was a joke at first, but I got to read the letter and I went, wow. And Will, I don't know where Will was. He wasn't even in the country, I think, or something. Anyway, I was going to do it. So I called Taxi and I said, look, here, I read the letter, and he said, make it happen. I said, now look, I ain't taking this kid out here in Clay County. We're going to Texas. Because I mean, this is 20 something years ago. Ray Charles can kill a turkey in Texas. It ain't like that hard to do. So we put this hunt together in Texas for 9 wells. Pick them up at the airport in Dallas and went to a place called the Richards Ranch, which is north of there and all that. And this little kid was really quiet. He was a few weeks out of surgery, and his daddy was saying, they were having to give him protein shakes and stuff. Everything made him kind of sick, and he wasn't real lively. He didn't really say anything on the way to the camp. He was kind of shy. And when we got there, I had a little 20 gauge, and he was trying to shoot the 20 gauge right-handed, but he had to aim with his left eye. He had an issue with whatever happened in the surgery. And I said, that's not. Yeah, I said, that ain't gonna work. They had just opened the Bass Pro in wherever it is, close to Dallas. And I called, got the gun department, told them what was going on. I said, I need a scope or an aim point. I'm not a big aim point guy. I like them scopes on turkey guns. Anyway, they had what I needed. And the guy at the gun department gave me his name, said, come on. So I went and told him, I said, look, I'm going to go put something on this gun, and I'm going to be gone for a while. I got to drive back to Dallas. We'll get back, I'm going to turn the headlights on the truck and put a target down there, and we'll figure that out. Well, anyway, Ryan said, hey, Mr. Cuz, can I go with you? And I said, yeah. And his daddy gave me a written list. I'll never forget it, of what to watch out, issues he had. Wasn't eating much. Didn't have any depth perception. Be careful stepping off a curb. It was a list of stuff. So me and Ryan jump in my truck and we go to Bass Pro. I get him a shopping cart. I said, if you see something you want to take turkey hunting, go do a little shopping. And I was thinking, that'll be on my credit card. I'm going to just catch a dream. If Toxie sees, he found a decoy and that stuff. Anyway, we got the scope thing mounted on the little 20 gauge. So we're leaving, and I see that big orange W up there at the exit. It's a Whataburger. And I said, Ryan, it was like 7 o'clock. I said, I'm finna pull in here. And he said, okay. So he follows me in, and I ordered what I always get, a number 2, which is a double, mustard, mayonnaise, and pickles on it, and a chocolate shake, something else. And he said, I'll have the same. I went, okay. So he got the same thing I did, ate every bite of it, driving back to the lodge. And I was telling his dad, I said, man, he ate a great old big double burger. And he said, no. I said, I watched him. Roger, he ate every bite of it. Well, the next morning, he's up. He's a little more chipper. He's eating some oatmeal with us and all that. And he's kind of getting used to everything. The little gun worked great. We shot it through the headlights. Well, long story short, it started raining. And it rained for 3 days. And I don't know him. And it was like, I would sit him down. Turkeys weren't gobbling. It was raining pretty good. And it would stop it was just one of them tropical kind of rains. And I'd sit him between my legs where I thought we'd need to sit. And he would take that little gun and go. And I started calling him the Rock. I said, man, you're a rock. Sits like a rock. So I knew it was all on me. Anyway, last morning, and I don't normally pray for anything around hunting. And I was praying to God so hard. I said, look, if you give me 30 minutes, we'll kill this turkey. Or try. Anyway, the guy driving the truck said, Cuz, look over there to the right. And I looked over there, 2 strutters out in this pasture. And we ran down there and he killed one. And
wow.
Look, you can't imagine how good I felt, because I was going back every night. And his daddy would be standing in the driveway with his little brother. Y'all get one? No. I felt like I had the flu. Anyway, he killed a turkey. We got to be buddies with his mom. They would email me all the time, keeping up. And one day I get a letter, a handwritten letter from his mom, and I set it down on my desk and I wouldn't open it. I was absolutely scared to death, because I always get emails.
Yeah.
And I looked at that letter, and finally one day God said, open the letter. It was making my stomach hurt. And what the letter was, it was pictures of him in his baseball uniform.
Oh, wow.
And on the back, he had the Rock. And he was hand writing me, telling me how much fun they were having and how good he was doing in baseball. And I said, look, if that's not your favorite hunt, I can't imagine what would be. 20 years later, to the week, I took all 3 of them back out there, and he killed another turkey right there on almost that same spot.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
was like, God is good. I'm telling you,
Yes,
I
sir.
never working in like that, but that's my favorite. That's my favorite hunting store. Longburg.
Oh man, no, that is incredible. That's an amazing story. I mean, I'm glad he was able to come back, and
Yeah.
I mean, just man, it's stuff like that, and you've been in the filming game for a while, and you've written stories, and you've told a bunch of stories, but the stuff like that you just can't script out.
No, I tell it all the time. People, they'll get, and every time I try to tell it, I get a little choked up because I lived through it. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just the coolest thing. And he's a big time gamekeeper. His little brother grew up to be much bigger than him, and they've got their own little piece of property up there in Indiana, I think it is. And they kill a big deer and they turkey hunt, and we stay in touch all the time. It's one of the coolest things ever happened to me.
Well, one of the coolest things to me is I know you've been in camp with a bunch of people, famous people, athletes, outdoor riders, all of that, and for all those stories you have, and you tell that one, that's pretty incredible to me.
Yeah, I've had a blessed life and been around some great people. There's great people everywhere. It really is. But that one's just stuck, man. It's stuck in my craw. It's the coolest hunt ever. And look, there's great people everywhere. One of the best hunts I ever had. When we had a show on the Golf Channel, we filmed Jack Nicklaus killing a deer with a bow and arrow out in Texas, and he did one of the best interviews I've ever done, and that was very humbling. But
Hmm.
somebody, if they pin me down for my favorite hunt, I always have to tell them about Ryan the Rock.
Ryan the Rock, I love it, man. That is incredible. Um, oh my goodness. Well, because you may see that Ben's not here anymore, he's having some technical difficulties, but that's okay. We're just going to keep on strolling along here. Just wanted to tell the folks what's going on. So I do have a couple more questions. I know you said that you went to Texas for Ryan the Rock. There is that obviously, other than your home farm and being with your family and things, is that one of your favorite places to hunt, or do you have a totally different spot?
Texas was always the first time I went to Texas. It was before Moss Hill, before any of this stuff, and I read this article in Field and Stream, and a guy was interviewing Ben Rogers Lee. And Ben Rogers Lee was the first superstar of any kind of turkey hunting. If you don't know who Ben Rogers Lee was, Google him. And he was a elementary school janitor or superintendent or something over in Coffeyville, Alabama, and ended up making Ben Lee calls and all. Anyway, Ben Lee was talking about the first time he did the spring before he went to Texas. The guy was taking him to where he wanted him to listen and just showing him whatever. And he pushed the barbed wire down to cross over a fence, and it squeaked. The staple was loose, and when
Oh
it made
wow!
that sound, a turkey gobbled. And supposedly he sit there and call that turkey up, squeaking that staple. And I was like, I got to go out there. So a year or so later, I see a little ad in some magazine for a turkey hunt, 2 turkeys in Texas for $200. And I was
Mm.
like, and there wasn't any internet. You couldn't look up. So I called the guy and he told me where it was. You got to pay. Anyway, I drove all night in my 1963 GMC that I just put a floor shift in because the column shift broke and you could literally see the road down there. But anyway, I drove all night, had never been out that part of Texas for anything. It was dark, when I hit Louisiana, it was getting dark. And made it to this place with a handwritten map and an atlas. And as soon as I pulled up to what I thought was the right place, a light flicked on. It was the guy. There was one other hunter there. And he draws me a map, just a piece of notebook paper with a square on it. He said, I'm going to drop you off right here across the fence, and you'll be walking west, and just don't cross another fence, left or right or front, and you'll be in the right pasture. I said, okay. And he left. And I kind of stood around, walked a little bit, and the sun, it started getting a little bit light. And you could, I couldn't see a blade of grass, anything taller than a blade of grass.
Hmm.
And a few little bushes on the ground. And I was getting madder by the minute, thinking I had been hoodwinked because I done paid the guy. And
Oh wow!
yeah, about that time, I heard a sound out in front of me, and I couldn't tell you it was turkeys. But I kept walking for it, and then the terrains went down. There's a big old bottom down there with all them live oaks, and the turkeys just gobbled this way and they gobbled. It was just a roar. Never heard anything like it. And of course, I killed 2 turkeys in minutes. And from that point on, I was hooked on Texas because that, especially that middle part, the kind of the hill country part. The reason that was so good for so long is because it was a lot of sheep ranching going on out there, and those sheep guys just annihilated any kind of predators. They just didn't put up with them, and so the turkey explosion was on. And it's always been a special place for me. I love it. Still love going out there. I was out there this past fall. We auctioned off a hunt at I think the Foxhole Shootout. A guy bought a hunt with me out there on the Ford Ranch with Kevin Burleson. That's Heart of Texas bow hunting. And it's, to me, it was like going to Africa. The terrain is so different, and the sound, I just fell in love with it. And look, anywhere you can buy a 50-pound bag of corn at the Dairy Queen, you're in the right place.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I'm talking about.
very, very hunter friendly. So yeah, I guess Texas would be number 2 for me anytime.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Ben and I actually doubled on some Rios in Texas, around the Kerrville, Texas area. And man, I mean, it was my first time ever hunting in Texas, and then it was my first Rio and only Rio. It's out of the camera view, but it's just right there. I got it mounted on the wall for me, and man, that it was same where, to me, and this is my one experience hunting Rios. I'm sure they humble you just like anything else would, but I'm used to these old mountain eastern birds. They're a little harder to kill in my opinion. And I remember I walked out of the lodge, and there's this bottom, and there's like this little trees, and I hit that owl hooter, and I mean they just popped off, and I thought, all right, well, here we go. I ran back inside. I woke Ben up. I said, all right, Ben, we got a turkey hunt. Come on, let's go. We're going right now. And I grabbed all the camera gear, and the idea was I was gonna film and we were gonna double. So we get down there and we get all set up, and the decoys are out, and those turkeys just put on an absolute show, come in strutting, spitting, drumming, just, and I'm sitting there, and I'm plumb sideways at this point, because I'm just my brain's going like, how am I here? How is there a Rio in front of me? And I'm filming it on a show. 5 years before that, if you told me that was going to happen, I'd have told you were crazy. And all these things are just going through my head, and me and Ben are sitting there, and it's perfect. And 3, 2, 1, boom! Ben smashes his turkey, bang, like he's been there 100 times. I plumb miss, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, that turkey stayed around, and I thought, okay, we're good. Boom! I missed again, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've got one shell left in my gun. I've got none on me because I ran out of this place with all my gear. Like, I need to hit this turkey. And I finally realized it wasn't going nowhere, and I just needed to take a breath for half a second. And I did that, and I finally smashed the turkey down, and everything was awesome, and I got it all on film, and all that was great. So Texas has got a special place. I love it.
It's yeah. You go out there and hunt. We used to have big hunts out there with riders and customers. We'd be out there for 2 weeks, and man, everybody would get their turkey, and I'd come home and start fooling with these turkeys around here, and I'd get slapped back in the face with some reality going, man, I love Texas. So I get it. First place I ever had a Whataburger too. So I'm a big fan of Texas. I promise.
I'm right there with you. Now, I don't know if you know this. By trade, I don't like to call myself a chef. Ben always tries to tell people I'm a chef. I'm very blessed. My family owned a restaurant. My mom has a degree in culinary arts. Dad's been punching time clock in the kitchen for 40 plus years. So I've got some experience in it. And every time we go on the road, I always try to cook up something. And man, I love just a good old fashioned burger. And I know you do too. So I'm gonna have to, whenever we get together, I'm gonna have to try and make you some sort of burger. I mean, what are you looking for in a burger, man? Is it simple, just like you were saying, mustard, mayo, pickle? Is it all you're ever wanting out of life?
Yeah, I'm not a gourmet burger, and I talk about them all the time. And I did 2 videos, the best
Hmm.
burger I ever had, and I'm just me. I'm pretty
Yeah.
simple palate. Was in Jacksboro, Texas, which is north of Dallas. You need to try this one time. And it's a
Okay.
place called the Herd Burger, Herd. And it's a little bitty, tiny brick building. And if you get
Mm.
there anytime before noon, there'll be a line all the way down the street. And it's one guy in there and there's no telling how old that griddle is, but
Oh
I
yeah.
like a smash burger. And that's all you
Yes.
can get in there. You get it's like the soup Nazi on Seinfeld, the soup Nazi guy. They're real crusty, small. And he butters the buns and all that, wraps them in wax paper so the paper gets greasy. And I
Oh
always
yeah.
say that's my bar. It's the Herd Burger. So I like
Okay.
I'm not a gourmet burger guy. I like smash burger, crusty, buttered bun, greasy, that kind of stuff. And
Absolutely.
man, it is an absolute addiction with me. And I'm sure there's one out there. I just hadn't had it yet.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I would sure love to get together in camp and make you one and see if we can recreate the Herd burger.
I bet you could. It ain't that some people try to make a smash burger, they can't get them thin enough. And
Right.
there's good recipes for that, but hey, everybody's different. And throwing
Absolutely.
out what's your favorite hamburgers, like throwing out like what caliber do you shoot a deer with? You can get 9,000 arguments started like that. So
Absolutely.
I have my own list, and that Herd Burger's still at the top after 25 years.
Oh, I'll be daggone. How about that?
I love to eat now. I'm telling you.
Oh, I'm right there with you, partner. I always tell people I didn't get this physique just waking up. I had to work real hard for it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
The
it.
podcast I got up right now is with a guy about barbecue, and he had some next level barbecue. He was cooking at a turkey event, and I got him on there, and we talked about ribs and
Mm.
chicken, and I asked him all kinds of questions. I said, like potato salad, skin or no skin, mustard or mayonnaise, vinegar slaw, and I guarantee they'll do good. People love to cook, and
Yeah.
that's what the podcast is right now. It's like barbecue secrets from a pit
Uh,
master, but we talk about sides and everything. Big
nice.
deal at my house. I love it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh man, that's incredible. Well,
Hmm.
because I've just got one more question for you, and I really do appreciate your time today.
Yes, sir.
Um, and this question's important to me because I don't know if you remember, but we met at the turkey show. It's probably 2 or 3 years ago, and we talked we're talking 3 to 5 minutes, a little tiny
Mhm.
interaction. And I was just getting started uh, filming because I had my own little YouTube thing, just I did with my buddies for fun, and I never thought anything of it. And now it's filming rooted television, and I have this podcast. And you gave me some advice there, and so my question to you is, I know there's going to be some young, you know, videographer listening. What is your advice to someone getting started in that outdoor industry filming world?
Yeah. Well, to me, it's pretty easy. Everybody thinks that's a hard journey, and I tell my grandsons this all the time. They're footballers and baseballers and a couple
Mm-hmm.
MMAs that they work and work. And I said, look, always remember that no matter what you see or what you want to be, nobody can tell you how far you can go except you. The better you do, some people are going to be pointing a finger, saying all this and all that. I said, it's all in your hands. If you want it bad enough, you can make it happen. And if your passion is to do this, at the end of that journey, you'll feel like you didn't work a day in your life. But don't
Mm.
let other people's opinions sway you. Because I can tell you this right now: some of the uh, podcasts, some of the YouTube stuff, they reach more people than big time TV shows now. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like you see this person doing it's been doing it for a long time. You think, man, they're pretty special. Well, guess what? Your audience may be as big as theirs, so realize that, but don't let anybody other than God already knows what it's going to be, but don't let anybody persuade you one way or the other. It's all up to you. You control that destiny, and with with that exposure comes responsibility. But just dig deep and do it yourself.
To me that's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth right there.
That's it. That's exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of people way smarter than me will tell you the same thing. It's like, it's all up in your head if you're willing to work, and don't let people's perception of you be your perception of yourself. Because sky's the limit. I can just tell you, the sky's the limit.
I love that. I mean, it's so true. I mean, it really is.
It is.
So
yeah, nothing to sell. Just telling you how it works. Mine was divine intervention and luck, but there was a lot of late nights and road trips and cleaning up behind people. None of that. It's just, are you willing to do it? If you're willing to do it in this day and time, you're going to end up being a superstar. I can tell you that.
Man, well, I like to think our stick-to-itness is there, and we're just going to ride it out and see what happens. So,
well, I got a good feeling about you. So I'll do my little part. Maybe we can revisit at NWTF and catch up. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to ask some questions. I'm honored by that. Never doubt that.
Well, I sure do appreciate your time, Cuz, and it's always great chatting with you. And we'll have to get you down here for a hunt, and we'll have to swing by your booth, and you swing by our booth in this February.
I'm gonna make a smash burger happen at some point. You're gonna cook me a smash burger.
Yeah, and anytime you name the place, I got the grill. I'll throw it in the bed of the truck, and we'll ride on.
That's now on my bucket list.
Yes, sir. You got it. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Mr. Cuz, thank you for your time again, and we'll see y'all later.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
For all things Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television, and I mean hats, shirts, hoodies, and other merch, check out our friends at CH Lone Star Pro and the link that is in our description.